Marfoogle TV going live in 3, 2. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. We've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so let's get right into it. We have, of course, U.S. night stalkers seen in the Caribbean as fears of regime change rise in Venezuela. They say fears rise of regime change. Everything has spelled out a pretty clear picture that is pretty much what's going on. Everything is the obvious, right? As far as what they have done in declaring this a narco-terrorist means that they can basically skip the Congress part and do a regime change like this without little setbacks, right? That's what at least I and many others think that is going on right now. So it's just like a waiting game for when this actually kicks off. They've been telling us for weeks that there's most likely going to be land incursions, or there already is. Of course, an eighth boat was just hit, but this time a Colombian boat. So what the hell is really going on here? Again, elite helicopter units, a part of a military deployment, comes as the president ramps up pressure on Maduro. They call themselves the Night Stalkers, and their unofficial motto hints at the group's lethal nocturnal line of work. Death waits in the dark. Again, you can flee, but they will find you, which is probably one of the most awesome mottos out there. It says, warns a rare book about the U.S. Army's secretive 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, or SOAR. Out of all of the abbreviations that the military has, that also is not bad. Compared to some of the horrible ones. Since the elite helicopters unit creation in 1981, its daredevil pilots have taken part in some of the most dangerous missions in recent U.S. history, and again, battling Islamic State during Operation Inherent Resolve in Iraq, Syria, and Somali warlords during Operation Gothic Serpent. See what I mean? God, these nicknames. And then spiriting Navy SEALs into Pakistan to kill Al-Qaeda, which, again, a lot of people have questions about. Osama bin Laden, which they dumped magically into the ocean and never took pictures or anything of it. It says, I honestly think these people are the best rotor wing pilots in the world. They are the Formula One drivers of aviation, said Stephen Hartov, the author of the book about the unit's top secret missions, which nearly always happen under the cover of darkness. So you're talking about the same aviation regiment that supposedly took out, Osama. So is there anything, connected here? Again, we'll talk about this and much, much more. Again, we're stockpiling warheads. We'll go over that too. And we're not talking about the stuff we just talked about on news. This is a different story. So we'll get into everything in just a moment. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. Nice to see everybody in the house already, including Necky. I was just playing with you. You called me Nerf. Wing It with Ethan. We've got Frog. We've got Woman of Wonder. Hey, Woman of Wonder. Awesome Foogles in the house. Cindy Who. We have Mr. F. John Doe. We have Fingerman. We have Soundman Army, just in case. And then our wonderful mods so far, Chance Paladin and Bobby Sue. Thank you so much. Ilea, if you're watching the replay, we love you. And Mad Pax and so many more. Milosh, thanks for asking how I am. I've got a nasal thing going on. It just, been a week of sickness. So thank you guys for your patience through the last couple weeks. All right, let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugel fam. I'm doing just fine.
All right, so let's talk about North Korea. Fires missiles as Trump prepares the South Korea visit.
Exactly. So if in proper form, right, you got to show a little strength before you're going to go meet with the top dog, as they would think. But North Korea fired what appeared to be multiple short-range ballistic missiles, South Korea said. And this is exactly a week before the Asia-Pacific leaders are going to be meeting in South Korea. It was the first launch of ballistic missiles since May. So it's been a while since he's launched any of the ballistic missiles. And it also, obviously, which has defied the United Nations Security Council ban on weapons, but I don't think that ever stops him. It was also the first such launch since Lee Jae-myung was elected president there in South Korea with a platform of engagement with North Korea. That's the new person that got in that we obviously have seen has had more leanings towards cooperation with probably both China and North Korea. But Lee and U.S. President Donald Trump are expected to meet in South Korea next week at a summit. Trump is also expected to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping, although who knows if that'll still be on. But and then there was also discussions at some point about him potentially meeting with Kim, but we don't know any of the details of that, if it's even going to happen. I know he said it would be an opportunity, but South Korea has detected several projectiles believed to be short-range ballistic missiles fired from the area of North Korea's capital in Pyongyang in a northeasterly direction early Wednesday, according to the Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, most people are not going to pay attention to North Korea until it actually gets hot, because honestly, North Korea has done so many of these. We fire missiles right as things happen, and people are just used to it. They're desensitized to it. Unlike, 10 years ago when they did this stuff, everybody paid attention. Now we don't even know if Kim Jong-un is even still in charge. Somebody made a comment, said, actually, I've gotten a lot of emails too, like saying, you're sick a lot. I'm sick a lot for two reasons. One, I have intestinal stuff as far as I've had diverticulitis twice last year, and then almost had to have part of my intestines removed. So that does make my immune system worse, but also where are my parents at with small kids in school? So if you have kids in school, maybe you don't remember, but the kids bring home sicknesses like every week. So I have a good immune system, or better than it should be, because of that. We are, they're constantly bringing stuff home. It's like, it seems every week that we get something going through our house. And then if you have a big family, we have 6 people, it goes all the way through us, and then it goes back around. Sometimes we'll get sick, the last person will have it, and then it will mutate and rotate to the first again. It's not too fun, but yeah. With a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 11-year-old, the little ones are usually the ones bringing home the sicknesses. Not the best at thinking about what they touch. All right, but thank you, and I appreciate that people sent prayers too in my email box yesterday, so that was really appreciated. Putin supervises readiness drills for the Russian nuclear forces. So, you always have to look at kind of the behind the scenes of what's happening right now, what's forward facing with the media and the news, and then what very well could happen. This is always news from a prepper standpoint. So we talk about things that are potentials. Even if they're a 0.5% potential, that's how preppers look at the world. Even if it's a small chance, they act as if it's like, hey, you might get in a car accident, so you get car insurance. You might drop your phone, you get insurance on your phone. You might, you might die randomly from something, you get life insurance. But not a lot of people actually think about having food on hand and water on hand, enough for an emergency. In fact, most people don't have an emergency fund. Most people just can't do it nowadays, especially with how the economy is. But that's how we look at this stuff. So when we look at this, there's all these, side theories that happen in our community, and for good reason. There are potentials and possibilities that could happen. Well, right now, there's a lot of talk about nuclear this, nuclear that. Well, there always is. I'm less worried about a nuclear fallout or nuclear back and forth as I am a single tactical nuke going off to essentially escalate things into a bigger, massive war. The thing is, if you see this massive war coming as not the end of the world, which the sky is falling. The sky's not going to fall. The sky's going to change colors. And then all of a sudden, laws, how we spend our money, how we are tracked, how we are traced, the money we spend is going to change. Everything is going to be reset with this. And I think that is overall the goal. So when you look at this kind of stuff, you have to keep in mind, like this might be to make people afraid and fear things, but you have to understand there's an undertone here that they are programming the people of the United States in a certain fashion, especially when it's the three-letter agencies like FOX, CNN, BBC, and the rest, right? So Russia's strategic nuclear forces carried out a readiness test supervised by the country's President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday, the Kremlin said. Today, we are conducting a planned, I want to emphasize, planned nuclear forces command and control exercise. Dennis, don't you think it's interesting that he emphasized that? Like, why did he feel like he needed to emphasize that?
Maybe he wants to show that it's not a sign of, not I won't say weakness, but reactions to what's happening in the West or what the West is doing would be my first gut. But they always say these are planned, even though they may not be. And maybe he's just emphasizing the fact that it was planned when it really wasn't. Maybe it is something he's doing in reaction. And
we've talked about that many times. So the military has, in every state even, you have these annual drills that happen. And if you're in the military, you can attest to this. So say if there's, big throwing rock 2024 or whatever, and it happens every year. Well, big throwing rock 2024 could be a regular drill that they do every year, and regularly they, do shooting drills and target practice. But this year, something happens, something is a timely event that happens, they can use that and change it into a different kind of drill. It doesn't cause any kind of alarm. One, they could turn it into a real event, like they say, oh, we're just flying these bombers around Texas, but in reality, 6 of them go to frickin', Hawaii, while 2 of them go and bomb Iran. They can use it as a cover for that, but they can also use these drills to do things that are things that would alarm the public or alarm the civilians. But they do it and say, oh, well, it's planned. This is the 11th annual. So they do this every year. It's nothing to worry about. But as we know, these drills have been turned into real events, or they have been turned into other things. So with this, I just wonder, and especially with what we're about to talk about after this, which we're going to talk about the hoarding going on. Before we do, I do want to remind you guys, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is your defense against any electromagnetic pulse attack. A lot of folks do not know about this outside of our community. I've talked to people, they have no idea what the threat of an EMP is. Again, an EMP would knock out our power grid. Our power grid is the literal fundamental base and the structure of everything in our country. Everything depends on power, including our water. They say 90% of us would perish, and that's not because when it hits, it blows us all up. It's not going to hurt anybody directly. It's going to knock out our power, and then our power knocks out our infrastructure. Our infrastructure kills the water and other supplies and resources. So all of a sudden now people are absolutely screwed. Our supply chain will go kaput. It's a whole bad scenario. Now the DHS actually put out the EMP resilience report. They actually told people all Americans should have 6 months to a year of food and water. How many people do you think actually have that? So again, in this case, this is a device that will protect your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, your home against an EMP or even a CME from the sun if a Carrington level event happens. That way, even if you don't have the power turned back on, everything's off, you can start your generator up, you can run your appliances, you can, of course, get your car to your home to bug in or get your car out to bug out. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. They're extremely easy to install in anything. Some of them are plug and play, like the Starlink version, the ham radio version, and others. So go over to marfuglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. Again, marfuglenews.com/EMP, code MARF to save $50 off per device. Dex, you want to talk about the president slams Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, so this crazy story came out today from Wall Street Journal, and I say crazy because the headline alone was pretty big. It was saying that the Trump administration had given the green light to Zelensky to go deep with U.S. weapons into Russia and not just use them at the in the battle in the battlefield or in the front lines. So that story had come out, and it then obviously caused a lot of commotion with Trump, who had to come out and declare, no, that's not what I said, and that the U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles, wherever they may come from. It's fake news, as he likes to call it. He said the Wall Street Journal story on USA's approval of Ukraine being allowed to use long-range deep missiles into Russia is fake. The U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles, wherever they may come from, or what Ukraine does with them. Well, again, he is basically distancing the U.S. from it, but at the same time, I would say he's saying they're going to do whatever they're going to do with it because they're not our missiles. He's referring to the Storm Shadows. He's referring to any of the other missiles. I think France gave them some as well, but the ones we talked quite a bit are the Storm Shadows, which came from the UK. So the big question is, are we going to actually see that lift from Zelensky, or at least from the rules that have been placed on him to use those Storm Shadows and actually go deep? And is Trump using this as a negotiation tactic? Are we going to see a Storm Shadow hit Moscow? I mean, that would be a humongous escalation from the small drones, which is all they've been using to get that deep into Russia.
It would make perfect sense if a huge escalation happened right now because of what has happened. They have cut the actual reporters out of the Pentagon. The Pentagon used to be essentially, a place where the reporters had free reign, right? As they described it, the reporters could go around, grill people, listen in on people's lunches and things. And just recently, they said everybody's got to sign this thing where you are either in this area or you're not in here at all. You're not going to say anything unless we tell you you can say it or give you permission to, or you leave. And everybody left. Everybody left before the end of the day, except for ONN. And I tell you what, one of the smartest decisions for ONN, everybody that ever talks about this is going to be advertising for ONN every time, because it sticks out that ONN is the only reporter left in the Pentagon. I mean, like, he's not going to get any stories that the rest don't. The rest are probably thinking, like, then what's the point? They were leaking stuff all the time. They were getting their hands on stuff. They were talking. And that shows that we don't trust our own Pentagon workers. That means that there were Pentagon people going straight to the reporters, going in the lunchroom and going, hey, I got this scoop for you. So they're really trying to clamp down on that. Yesterday, we saw the clamp down on Congress. Dex, can you briefly describe what happened with Congress yesterday?
Yeah, they created a group in the Pentagon to be the central point for all information, all requests, all flow of anything to and from the Congress into the Pentagon, so that they have some sort of centralized control over it, and they can sort of minimize the touch points and control the information that gets out to Congress, where it used to be, Congress people just went anywhere they wanted, try to reach out to anybody they wanted in the Pentagon. Well, that's no longer the case. They're centralizing it. So, as
people aren't catching that.
Yeah. And it's just like the press, right? But as it relates to these missiles, the interesting thing is Trump sure is quick to say they can go deep, or at least insinuate that. And but we weren't quick to give up our own Tomahawks, because we're apparently in short supply of them. So, that was something he kept saying all week. Yeah, we'll give them Tomahawks. And then boom, pulled them away and said, nah, we're not going to give them Tomahawks because we need them. We need them ourselves.
Yep. And if you start looking through this lens of, this is very possibly something completely different than what they're telling you. I mean, when has it not been? through 2019 through 2023. Was the news ever accurate? Was it the complete opposite of what they told you? Oh, if you take this, you're not going to get this. And then 2 months later, after the first day, first 10 minutes, they say, if you take this, you're not going to get this. If you take this, it won't hurt. 10 minutes later, people are like, that's not true. Are you sure? No, we don't think so. And then 2 months, 6 months, 8 months later, oh, yeah, actually it doesn't. And everything reversed, right? Everybody can tell that something is about to happen here, and people aren't trusting their own guts, and they're once again going, but the TV says nothing's happening. But the news says it's all good. But the news says it's for a drug operation. Oh, no, they're just going after drug warlords. Yeah, they've got 8 warships for 8 speedboats. Think about that. Just put the 8 warships that are in Venezuela against the 8 speedboats. That is the power of media. When they put it on news, have a guy in a suit come on with, brought to you by Coca-Cola, people literally go, okay. You guys know we're all surrounded by gullible people, and sometimes we're the gullible people, right? Sometimes we are that person. But this time, go with your gut. This is obviously something is going on, and I can't say for sure if this is a massive war that's coming or something else that's super dangerous that we don't know about. That they have military forces in our country already. What would that look like? Well, it would look like over 4 years, people who everyone essentially agreed on the mass, idea of the last president was that somebody was pulling the strings. Both sides said, this guy can't really do it himself. So what was he? That's why they use the word puppet, right? If he was a puppet for both sides or any side, they're 2 wings of the same bird, right? The actions that our country took beyond the cultural argument of like, should people be let in? Should we just open everything up and go, come on in and get free welfare, free hotels, free everything? Does it make more sense that maybe some people were on the take and there's other countries that are helping fund things and trying to get people in here? I mean, the groups of 30, 40, 50 in groups of 18 to 25-year-old aged males wearing fatigues and buzz cut haircuts. People aren't catching this stuff, and they go, well, the news says that's nothing. In fact, the news didn't. I don't think there was any debunks on that. They just ignored it. That's when like when they're not like straight up saying, oh, actually, Snopes says that this isn't true. They can't because there was so much damn video evidence of it. So like with this, they say fake news. I actually, in this case, I think that, he has to say that. I think the WSJ, I think they got a legit story because somebody leaked it and they haven't closed their leak loop. I don't think that this was supposed to get out. And Dex makes a really great point about the fact that like, hey, we need these Tomahawks. Even if we sold them and we got paid for them, we still need them. And then it makes you ponder, why do we need them, right? We don't have a Golden Dome yet, and there's a reason why we're even building one in the first place. Sweatin' Ministries, thank you so much for your support. It says, God bless everyone. I appreciate y'all's prayers. Dad is doing well, and I hope he is. He almost didn't make it. That's really scary, Sweatin'. And again, I appreciate you being here, and I'm still praying for your dad. Thank you for staying independent and small with accurate news. God bless all of you. Much love, fam. Thank you, and thank you. And then thank you, Patricia Serdal, John Doe, Mad Pax, Scrappy Dabby Doo, Harley Berg, and Funny Doers International. Thank you guys for even thanking Sweating them too. Thank you. And then Rochelle Coulier, nice to see you. And then me, Papa 007, thank you for gifting out 5 badges tonight. I appreciate that. And thank you for using that super to basically gift it to other Foogle family members. So appreciate that. All right. And then the administration hits Russia's top oil firms with sanctions to stunt the war funding and urges a ceasefire. Dex, this has been like an up and down, spinning, flip-flopping like last month of the Russia-Ukraine war. What's going on with this?
Yes. So just a reminder, we had, Trump pushing hard against Russia, telling Zelensky, you can reclaim your lands. Then he gets on a phone with Putin and comes off all happy and meets with Zelensky and says, nah, you don't need tomahawks and you need to give up your lands. And then everybody's mad that now he's gone to the side of Putin. Well, now he's going back and going against Putin and saying, okay, now it's it is, let's go hard against Putin and not be hard against Zelensky and say let's sanction him. So the Treasury Department has now released or put on new sanctions against two of the major oil companies and all of their subsidiaries, or a significant portion of subsidiaries, so that it does potentially stop the flow of income, which is feeding their war machine. It's the last thing they have. Now, I don't know how well that, I mean, sure, it's nice that the Treasury Department does it. We've seen how well they have skirted around the sanctions. It just makes it much more difficult. But at least in these cases with the oil, it was one of those areas they were able to actually sell and trade outside of the country. So yeah, this could be a big deal, but at the same time, I also feel like they've set up a lot of opportunities with China and India and others where they have sold oil, probably even Venezuela for that matter, and found other ways to transact it as opposed to SWIFT.
Yeah, as far as with Trump and Putin, it's been this back and forth. They don't know which is which. Trump has flip-flopped so many times on this. I don't know where he actually sits. It's been back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Again, the Treasury is prepared to take further action if necessary to support President Trump's effort and end yet another war. The whole thing is a mess. And then NATO chief brush off concerns of Trump-Zelensky rift. So another angle from this, you have NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, the same one that actually has his theory of what is going down right now is very similar to mine. Concerns about tensions between Donald and Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky, while reiterating his belief that only the U.S. president could achieve peace between Moscow and Kiev. Rutte visiting Washington just days after Trump hosted Zelensky for tense talks, met with lawmakers on Capitol Hill before his own White House sit-down later in the day. Asked if the visit to Washington was a sign that the Trump-Zelensky talks last week were a disaster. Rutte said no, describing it as a successful meeting. Rather, his trip was planned beforehand. Again, they say, it was planned, and came about after he texted the U.S. president seeking to, quote, discuss how we can now deliver his vision on peace in Ukraine. The NATO chief told reporters, I have total confidence in President Trump, and he is the only one who can get this done. So we've covered Mark Rutte's statements. I've actually never seen such a pro-Trump statement from Rutte ever. Have you? I don't think I've seen one.
Yeah, he's gotten more, but this one's definitely up there. And he's gotten more pro-Trump over the last 6 months, especially with all the new money that was flowing in for NATO from all the countries. But yeah, this is definitely pretty much takes the cake, the top of it.
So it makes you wonder too, because if he is pro, I mean, all of NATO was against Trump because Trump was saying, hey, we're going to get out of this. And even, talking about places like Spain and saying, hey, we might even want to drop Spain out of this if they don't pay. He essentially went in and said everybody needs to pay their fair share. And it's hard to argue that, right? Especially when there was multiple countries that were essentially going for a free ride. Well, other countries, including our own, were putting up a ton more money than everybody else. So are we footing the bill? Well, he said no, and they didn't really have a clear argument of why not. Now almost all of them are spending 5%, which is a giant leap in GDP for many of those countries. Some of them with less money are paying, while rich countries are actually not. Thank you, Sweatin' Ministries, again. Thank you for joining the fam again. Thank you so much, Carol, Patricia, Sean C., Dale Jackson. Let's see here. Jake Malone, Norcal Choom. It's like, what is Choom from? That Cyberpunk 2077. Kathy Paina, MJ, Berlinda Mustafa, thank you. Johnny Gonzalez, thank you. Jess, Retro Roman, Doomsday and Simulation Channel, nice to see you as well. All right, and 798 Welders Girl, Mad Pax, thank you, and thank you for being here. And then NASA chief suggests SpaceX could lose its lunar lander contract. So this is another head scratcher here. It said that Monday, Sean Duffy, the acting administrator for NASA, said that the agents could let other companies compete with SpaceX for the NASA contract. In 2021, SpaceX was awarded with a $2.9 billion agreement to build the Starship vehicle for the Artemis 3 moon landing mission. Again, a mission that everything has been delayed, pushed back. Every time that they say they're going to the moon again, right? They end up pushing back or something happens. It says, but with the project lagging behind schedule, Duffy said he's not going to wait for one company while China races to put astronauts on the lunar surface by 2030. So by now, you're still having, with all of our upgraded tech, with the original lunar lander, having as much tech as what we have now in the Hallmark aisle, that little card that you open up and it says happy birthday, that card with the sound chip, that has as much computing power as the actual lunar lander that landed on the moon. That is what it is equivalent to. So by now, it's pretty crazy that, just like I was talking about earlier, when the news and media and somebody in a suit says this is true, people go, yeah, it is. I personally don't think we ever went, but that's just my personal opinion, and people think that that's crazy. I even go back to the statement by what's his face. It's like he said, "Oh, I remember watching when I was a kid," and him making the comment about, "Well, that was in animation. We couldn't have done that." They still have an issue with stuff like this where they would get video from a very far thing and have it without lag. And somehow people watched it live like they were just watching it, no joke. I just think it's funny. But speaking of which, now during this government shutdown, a lot of eyes are on NASA because right now we have this huge miles-wide object, Atlas, 3i Atlas out there, and now there's less eyes watching because now the government shutdown conveniently lands right around it. Which almost every time the government shutdown has rolled around, I think we've had some sort of weird space-related thing going on. But the Artemis 3 mission is currently slated for 2027. And I guess we'll see in 2027. But the fact that China's like trying to be, on the surface by 2030, how have they not? And again, I thought they put astronauts there on the backside of the moon or something, but I guess that was just a satellite. How would they not be there already, right? Some believe that they're completely lying and that ever since the 60s, we've had space astronauts on the moon, and that's actually the cover-up. That, we don't go back because they just don't want anybody going up there at all because something else is going on. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, Kathy Piana, thank you. And Yvonne Berger, thank you. Members, Diana Boss, Shastina, Paul Panda, thank you. Wing It with Ethan, nice to see you. The Fire Rises, nice to see you as well. 3i Atlas is a sleeper cell from the darkness. And I hope not. And then Yvonne Berger says underwater space landing. Either that or half speed, slow-mo, walking, whatever it is. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out Energy. If you haven't already, this is our recommendation for a solar generator. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. This is an absolutely badass generator. It is built with a steel reinforced frame. It is modular, so you can actually add different attachments that alter it, that can, say, make it supercharged, that could take more panels. It's a very, very cool system, but on top of that, it's built like things used to be built. The 1960s toasters that you find in the thrift store that still work. The toaster companies realized if they make toasters like that, no one will ever buy another toaster. So they started making them crappier and crappier and crappier. Well, this is the opposite. This is made directly for the U.S. Army under the SBR Phase 2 contract. And again, you are getting the exact specifications that they get, which means it's also front-loaded in the USA. That way, that nobody's putting, back doors into it, that it's not going to be turned off remotely. There's no Wi-Fi for somebody to, utilize and turn off in an emergency. because all of us know who has a true monopoly on all of the battery tech for solar generators. Go check it out, marfooglenews.com/energy. Again, marfooglenews.com/energy and code Marfoogle. All right. And then Dex, ICE is stockpiling warheads and guided missiles. What?
Look, as I said, this is a short show that was over on News. Make sure you go share that out. This is critically important information for your friends and family, and that's a perfect video to do it. You go through all the details, but this same story. So the fact that there's been, a 700% increase in spending on weapons for the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement just in the last, 9 months is astronomical. The fact that that's happening makes you wonder, what are they doing? What are they planning for? It's probably, I'm certain, some of it is bringing on all these new people and doing all of the rounding up that they're doing. That's part of their mission, which is to remove illegal aliens. But this expense seems so much higher than that. It feels like they're getting prepared for something bigger. And then the fact that they're saying that there is money being spent on things like, guided missile warheads and explosive components. I mean, you can understand maybe a little bit on the explosive side, and certainly they talk about chemical weapons, and you can sort of write that into, okay, well, it's pepper balls that can be put into that category, or tear gas, etc. But the guided missile warheads part, that and the total dollar spent here is just astronomical. It should be eyebrow raising. This isn't necessarily, while the article may be pushed against, the president and very cited there, the stats that are in here are pretty alarming, and we ought to think about, what does it mean as it relates to what they're preparing for? Like, is there something bigger coming?
And it's specifically ICE. And would ICE also be standing in alongside National Guard if there was something that happened here? So say in states where possibly many went that came in over the last 4 years, and not talking about the people that wanted a fresh life and an American job and the American dream. I'm talking about the many others that came with it. The numbers were staggering, millions upon millions. We all saw the videos of the caravans and everybody that came in. Do you think that all of those people were just really, really great, awesome people looking to, get a job and actually have a chance at life, right? I'm sure that 95, 98, 99% of them probably were. But the 1% of millions is a whole lot. Even if it was 1%, if it's 0.5%, that's a lot of bad guys. When you have video evidence of, military-aged males, all 19-year-old kids with buzz cut hairs and fatigues in groups of 30 and 40, that's kind of weird. When you have witness testimony saying that they're, popping a chicken head off and drinking it, which is a PLA ritual, right when they get across, that's weird. When you have our own government saying, you know what, let's not do the background checks and tell their court date. So we'll grab them, snatch them, say, hey, you're caught. Here's your court date. We're not going to do a background check. Go hang out in Colorado, Seattle, frickin' Portland, or New York. Go chill there for a minute. It just seems super obvious what is about to happen. But again, we're just the crazy people on the internet. All right. And again, thank you everybody that made it tonight. I appreciate all of you, including our awesome mods. Thank you, and thank you. Thank you, Sweatin' Ministries. You are top supporter tonight. Me, Pubble 007. I believe you are number 2. Romans 12:19. I believe you. I missed you in the beginning. M. St. G. Paying it forward just a little. Thank you. Vanecki Potassio V-Rocks Pit. Super freaking awesome to see you. Again, I said woosah. It is awesome to see somebody that has been a subscriber for as long as you have popping into chat. Again, I hope you're still creating. Again, you've been here. You're probably one of the first 100 subscribers I had. I don't know. You'll have to tell me. And then Ilea, please send prayers up for Mark Wages and his wife Heather. Yeah, so I just heard about all of that. And again, I highly agree with that. If you can pray for Mark and his wife, it would be much appreciated. You can actually find Mark's channel over on marfooglenews.com/friends. You can go over to marfooglenews.com/friends and find all of our mods. But his is Wages World. Again, that's Mark Wages. Stealth Mode, thank you, Marf Dex Mods and Amazing Mates. Thank you, Michael Coslow, and so many more. I popped in. I saw Bad Apple Media in the house. Thank you so much for popping in. Thank you so much to Carol, Funny Doers International, Paul Panda, John Doe, Russell Talley, Colby Wilson, Johnny Gonzalez, and so many more. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. All right. Bad Apple Media, you spoke too soon. I bet there's probably a delay. That's going to get you. I totally shouted you out before you put that there. Stephen McMahon, Prayers, and Mark and Heather, what is going on? Shastina, Johnny Gonzalez, Judy Bailey, April R. Nice to see you. I'm guessing that's April without the R, or April R once removed. Let's see here, Overcomer and Mr. Dosenai. All right, you guys, and make sure to pop into the shoutro. It is not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Thank you so much, Dex, for your service. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right, you guys, be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. I